much. Karen and I are so honored to participate in this great event, in this national conference. We're honored to be here, to be part of it, to enjoy it, to experience it ourselves along with you. And we're also privileged to be able to share this stage with the incredible role models of success that you just had an opportunity to recognize, you're hearing from this weekend. Would you give your leadership a hand for all they do to role model success for you? Just being around them excites me. And by the way, I want our live audience to know we are packed to the gills. As far as I can see back there, this place is packed, but we're being joined right now by a television audience. Viewers all across North America have plugged in via PFN TV. So live audience, would you welcome all your teammates that are watching on TV tonight? But let me tell you what I love most about this event. This event is about information, it's about inspiration, but most of all, it's about transformation. Lives are changed as a result of us being here together. That's what I love about being here. Folks, we are so blessed to be part of this time together. Do you feel blessed just to be here? I certainly do. And you know, Primerica is a company that loves our history. We love our track record of success. But we are a future-focused company. And tonight I want to talk to you about a vision for Primerica's future. But more important than that, I want to talk to you about a vision for your future. Because it's your move. You're going to have to decide while you're here what you're going to do with this opportunity. You know, we've been blessed with a track record of success for many, many years, but I believe today, like never before, Primerica is positioned for our greatest success ever in the future. We're positioned for our greatest success ever after we leave here and after we leave this event. We've got to decide what we're going to do with that. We've got to decide how we're going to handle that. You know, at the beginning of 2020, just about 3 years and a few months ago, we decided that we wanted to have more than just a new year. We wanted to have a special decade at Primerica. And we declared it our decade of dominance. We were ending up 2019, heading into 2020, and we were excited about the future. Little did we know what lay in front of us. Little did we know we were going to experience the greatest disruption in most of our lifetimes. But I want you to know we've made it through, we've survived that. Not only have we navigated that disruption, we've had our greatest success in our company's history in the last 3 years. And when you start to look at where we are today, it gives you some clues of where we'll go in the future. So let's take just a minute and let's review our starting point. Let's talk about where we are as a company in a position to do something greater in the future than we've ever done before. And let's start with the perspective of the families that we serve. You know, if we look at our business and we look just back at where we were at the end of 2019 as we started the decade of dominance and where we are at the end of 2022, 3 years later, it's an amazing story. When we look at it through the eyes of our families that we serve, then we can look at it from the protection that we put in force. We can look at it from the claims we pay, where we deliver for families in a time of crisis. And we can look at it from the perspective of families that we're helping to build generation to generation wealth. You know, the next slide coming up, or the next column coming up on this slide, gives you our growth rate as a company. And you can see the tremendous success that we've been a part of that positions us today for the future. You can see how we've grown face amount by 11% per year, the amount of face amount we issue each year. 3 years in a row, over $100 billion of protection placed in force on families. Bringing our total to $917 billion. We're tracking toward $1 trillion of protection in force. Up double digits, up 13%. But more important than how we protect is how we deliver. Look at the claims paid, over 19,000 claims paid last year. That's over 19,000 families that you had a part in saving from financial disaster when they were dealing with the emotional loss of a loved one and a breadwinner. And look at how that's up 22%. And by the way, that number was even bigger the previous year in the pandemic. It was over 22,000 claims in 2021. Then look at the amount of the claims paid, up 32%, almost $2 billion in claims in a single year, up 22% from prior to the pandemic. And then actually that's up 32%. And then look at the investment business. Through those perilous times of market disruption, we were up tremendously in both sales and AUMs. That's Primerica's numbers. But it struck me as we gathered together this group, not just to look at all families, but let's look at the impact on African American families. Let's look during that 3-year period of time, your growth rate in serving your community compared to the company's incredible growth rate. And what you'll see from that list of numbers is you'll see a growth rate that's almost 10 points higher than the company in every single area. That's the impact you're having on families. Give yourselves a hand if you would. Amazing number. But then as I thought about that, I said, that's growth rate comparison, but there's another question that needs to be answered. How big is the impact? What part of all of Primerica are the African American families that we serve? The stats would tell you, according to whose stats you look at, that the population of the United States is between 12 and 14% African American, where people self-identify. And it changes because of how the question's asked and how people answer the question. But I can tell you, as you look at the impact you're making on the lives of Primerica that we serve, it's way bigger than 12 to 14%. Just look at these numbers coming up on the screen of the percentage of our total business that's represented by African American families and the families that you serve. Last year, $27 billion of face amount issued, 26% of our total face amount issued was issued on the lives of African American families. Give yourselves a hand for having that kind of impact. 20% of our face amount in force. Now you got to realize that these numbers, folks, are people that choose to identify, so they're probably understated. They're probably actually bigger than this. Look at the number of claims paid. 4,400 plus claims paid to African American families last year. 23% of the company's total. Those are families' lives in your community that you saved last year. Look at the amount, almost $340 million, 18% of the company's total. And even the investment business, $1 billion of investment sales last year. You're moving up, you're making an impact, you're in double digits. And assets under management are also growing. You've got to recognize that there is no company that serves all communities that can put those kind of numbers on a piece of paper. That can put those kind of percentages on a slide. Primerica is totally unique when it comes to helping the families who need us most. But then I had another thought. I said, okay, now we know just how big your impact is, but how would you rank compared to the industry? We do an industry scoreboard where we compare Primerica to other companies in the industry. What if we just took the RVPs who are part of the AALC and added you together? Where would you stand on the scoreboard? Well, we don't have the 2022 scoreboard yet, so here's 2021 coming up on the screen. You can see at the top of term insurance issued in North America is Northwestern Mutual, the Quiet Company, the Obnoxious Company, the Elite Company, and Primerica's number 2. I can't tell you, now I know that's exciting, but I can't tell you how bad that chaps my backside that we're number 2. But look down at the other red line. Look at the numbers of almost $30 billion of face amount issued in 2021 just from the base shops of AALC leaders would rank you as the 16th largest life insurance company in North America. There are between 700 and 800 companies doing business in North America. You'd be ranked number 16. That's how powerful you are. That's how successful you are. And keep in mind, that's not our ending point. That's our starting point. That's where we are today. So that's from the eyes of the consumer. That's from the eyes of our client. Now let's look at it from your perspective. From the perspective of our opportunity. Let's take a look at building distribution and compensation. Look at what happened between 2019 and 2022. If we go to the percentage column, please, you can see the growth in recruiting up 28%. Our sales force grew by 4%. You can see the total RVPs grew by 13%. Field cash up 24%. Equity up 25%. Number of owners up 14%. That's a pretty good track record. You proud to be part of that? That's Primerica's track record. Let's look at your track record. You see, you grew recruits by 28% as well, but you almost doubled the growth rate of the company. In fact, more than double the growth rate of the company in sales force size, going up 9%. Total RVPs, the company grew by 13%, you grew by 19%. Cash grew by 24% for the company, but it grew in the lives of African American leaders by 35% from 2019 to 2022. Equity was the only area, you only grew by 20%. Isn't that unbelievable? Okay, 4 out of 5 is not bad. And look at even the number of owners. You outstripped the company in the number of owners, 14% for the company, 21% for African American leaders. You see, this opportunity pays off when you do the right thing for your community. That's about leadership, but that's the growth rate. Let's go back to the percentage of total one more time and look at your representation. See, African Americans in 2022 represented 28% of the company's total recruits, 28% of the sales force, and 24% of all the RVPs in Primerica identify themselves as Black or African American. Folks, no company can compete with those numbers. They're not perfect. They're not as big as they're going to be. They're not as big as they should be. But I can tell you there's no other company out there that can put numbers like that on the scoreboard. But then let's look at where the rubber really meets the road, and that's in incomes. I love to measure the income milestones of our leaders. And you've probably seen me use a version of this slide almost every time I've talked for the last several years. This is where we identify the leaders that go over $50,000 and earn the watch. And remember, Primerica, that's $50,000 in a year or less. And we only recognize you the first time you do it. You can please do it over and over again, but we're only giving you one watch. We're only going to give you one ring the first time you do it, and you can see the numbers. Diamonds added to rings and $1 million earners. That's our total for 46 years as a company. Now let's look at the first 43 years, our track record prior to the decade of dominance. And you can see the numbers, but I have to look at them by month because the numbers are too big for me to process. But just think about this. For a period of 43 years, this company created 14 new first-time $50,000 earners a month on average. Every month, that's over 500 months in a row for 14 years. We created 7 new $100,000 earners on average every month for 43 years. 8 additional diamonds and $2 million earners per year. Can you get excited about being part of the company, that kind of track record? But you see, that was just from February of 1977 through December of 2019. Let's look at the last 36 months. Let's look at the decade of dominance. You see, we're not creating 14 new $50,000 earners a month now. We're creating 34 a month at Primerica today. More than one a day. If we're going to send out a watch every day, it's your move to claim your day. 24 new first-time $100,000 earners every month for the last 3 years. 42 additional diamond earners every month for the last 36 months. And not $2 million earners a year, but $10 million earners a year in the decade of dominance. Pretty exciting. Now let's look at the African American representation during the last 3 years. You see, 26% of all those watches have gone to African American leaders. That's at a rate of 9 a month. 28% of all of our new $100,000 earners have been African American. That's at the rate of 7 a month, which equals the total company rate for our first 43 years in business. We've got 10 additional diamond earners a month, bigger than what the company was doing prior to the decade of dominance. 28% of the total going to African Americans. And look at this, the biggest number of all, 29% of all the $1 million earners created during the last 3 years have been African American leaders. Let's take a look at them, because when you see it, it's even more powerful. These, of our $126 million earners, are the 31 created in the last 3 years. And I love this slide because it shows people from all backgrounds, all cultures, all walks of life. Both sexes, both countries we do business in. There's somebody there that comes from every background. But it's even more powerful when you just highlight the 9 African American leaders that are $1 million earners during the last 3 years. Give those leaders a hand. They're examples of success. That's our starting point. That's where we're beginning tonight. That's not where we end. You see, I believe there's no other company that can make claims like that, can demonstrate that kind of success for African American families and African American leaders, or for any leaders of any culture. I believe Primerica is totally unique, and I believe we're blessed to be a part of it. With that blessing, I believe comes tremendous responsibility. To whom much is given, much is required. And I believe there's a tremendous amount required of us because of how we've been blessed, because of where we've been positioned, because of those who went before us and prepared the path for us to be at this starting point today. We have a real responsibility to African American families. You know, I'm responsibility driven by nature. To me, it's not about the success, it's not about the recognition, it's not about the money. It's about delivering for the people that I have a commitment to. That's what I'm all about. And that drives me to make sure that we deliver for the families that are counting on us, because no other company can stand in the gap for African American families like Primerica can. No other company can. And if we don't do it, it won't get done. Now, I don't know about you, but that gives me a tremendous sense of responsibility. I don't want anybody to say, Glenn, that while you were asked to lead this great company, great things could have happened. The wealth gap could have been closed. Middle-income families from the African American community could have been changed, but you were asleep at the switch. Not going to happen on my watch. Not going to happen during my time. And so let's talk a little bit about this responsibility and this opportunity. Let's look more deeply at your community and see how big the need is and how big the responsibility that comes with the opportunity is. You know, in 2021, Pew Research did a survey, and they looked at the size and the growth of the African American community, and it came to the conclusion by looking at the numbers that the African American community is a young and growing population. That means that the need is great. That also means the opportunity is great. You know, their stats said that 47.2 million Americans self-identify as black. That's up 10 million, or 30%, since 2000. No other part of the U.S. population, other than the Hispanic population, has grown that fast. That's up 10 million. And listen to this: the average age of the black community is 33, 5 years younger than the average age in the U.S. That means they need us more than ever before. They got a long time to live. They got a lot to do. And the need is great, and it's huge. 47.2 million people. But then Lincoln Financial did a study, and they talked about how the attitudes and priorities of African Americans changed during the pandemic. It's no secret that the pandemic hit the African American community harder than any other community. We all know that. The result of that is their attitudes toward finances have changed like no other community. Lincoln found out that 74% of African Americans have experienced permanent changes in their desire to spend and save. They're handling their money differently. You're handling your money differently. Your community is handling its money differently. 75% are planning for the future differently. 61% are thinking about whether they have the right amount of life insurance or not. 3/4. No other community is experiencing that kind of priority, that kind of motivation. And then the consulting firm McKinsey found out in a survey that black respondents were 10 percentage points higher than any other group in their desire to increase spending on financial services. What did they want? What did they want that increase to be on? 37%. Said they want to build